Good morning to you, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings?
I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing left.
Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Sholmes, you're here. Why, naturally. A true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll see you later, then.
Damn, dude, you didn't have to do him like that.
Now, Professor, we really need to remain calm in the courtroom today. No more incriminating yourself. Understood. Do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again.
Yes, I will. I realize it was a mistake.
My dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, you're still here, Sholmes. What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not, to be cast in my direction, Sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Sherlock Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclaim, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now, first thing in the morning, a miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off me, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Oh my. Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice.
I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea.
I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in. Oh, Inspector Gregson, good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow, why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, eh?
Dear me. Are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor?
What? What? I don't know.
Poor Professor.
Anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for.
What paperwork? Ah, I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful.
You wouldn't believe the hopes I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the Professor's Autopsy Report.
That mass murderers who killed 5 members of the aristocracy.
He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps. And he was quickly executed after the trial. It's all in here. Well, we better have a gander at that.
We have a lot of fucking clues. Redacted for confidentiality. Pseudonym, the Professor. Death by hanging. Confirmed at midnight, June 17th. Courtney Stevens. Fascinating. This has illuminated me to no end. Obviously it'll be important, but like goddamn, there's like literally one line on it. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Yes, much obliged, Gregson.
Us lowly lot at the yard, doing what we can, in the shadow of the great Detective Sholmes, of course.
Well then, Professor Hairbrain, this is it. Today we're going to lay all this to rest. I wish you the best of luck, Professor.
I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber.
Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him.
I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel, I'm to defend him. Trial's about to resume. Make your way in the courtroom. This is it then, the final chapter.
Funny, my heart's racing a little. I've not felt this before, actually. This strange foreboding. I think that's like the 4th time you've said that. As if something's going to happen in this trial I'm not ready for. But I can't let that distract me from the one thing that really matters. Finding the truth.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I declare court in session. We resume the public hearing of Harry accused of murder. Blah, blah, blah. Counsels for the prayer. Are you ready?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Von Zykes and has his apprentice with him. His apprentice with memory loss.
If I may, Van Zykes.
Yes, my lord.
There appears to be someone standing at your side.
Ah, yes, my apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. Uh-huh. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial. And the smooth running of liquid refreshments. The way he holds himself, the way he moves, it couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but this is so very hard.
It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer.
Yes, my lord. I intend to call him as a witness shortly.
Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people, are you ready?
Of course, my lord. Well, I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty.
If I do so despise deception and deceit, I find it so very wearing.
To take a man's life with a conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not to mention the law.
Any fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me.
We have to listen to what's said on both the sides of the fence, then settle on one. That's it, isn't it?
Wasn't like this back in my day. Wasn't like this at all.
If all parties are ready, you may begin.
Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday, at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion effected by an unknown person or persons.
It was... what?
An explosion?
This is an outrage.
Yes, I heard the grave news today. Scotland Yard submitted a report to my office this evening. In the evening, not this evening, that's the future. I read that the machine was blasted to smithereens and the wreckage reduced to ashes.
I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in the wake of the explosion. Well, you can obviously drop through the ground, but nothing else immediately looks weird about it. It shows what little remains of the machine.
Yes, a terrible business.
He did it to destroy the evidence, did he? Yes. Yes, he did.
That Enoch Drebber.
The court will take this print as evidence. Let me have another look at it. Maybe something was hiding behind the text box. God, we have so many fucking clues. Nothing's behind me. No. Nothing really sticks out as being strange. Late yesterday afternoon, the prosecution afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the intervention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence from which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity. Indeed, a most unfortunate state of affairs. However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that, we can be certain. For the accused himself was operating the machine and who ultimately caused its loss of control. Objection. As Lord Van Zykes rightfully says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges Asmund died as a result of an accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, counsel. The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odie Osman. So what exactly are these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant. Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been stated. Lord Van Zykes, summon your first witness. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. State your name and occupation for the court. Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation. Hard to pin down, I would say. See that black monocle? Yes, why do I feel as though I've seen it somewhere before? Oh, you too. I had exactly the same feeling. Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a waxwork model? A most extraordinary sounding business. But that has no bearing on the trial, I assure you. Cleave it from your mind. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago? The accused's super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you could say that I'm aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigation indicates. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it in precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. Then the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last. What? Good gracious! Do you mean to say The experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief?
We're going to take the word of somebody that the entire jury knew was a fraudster. We're just going to believe that.
Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up.
But we've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick. Hold on. Also, why are we even entertaining this? We know he detonated the other bomb. Because he knew the bomb was there. So obviously he put it there, or was at least abetting whoever put it there. Therefore, he's obviously fucking lying, isn't he? Or he wouldn't have destroyed the machine. We've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick. You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome could have been produced by a means of stage trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more. But... We've procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, give your formal testimony about the machine you constructed.
Understood. I met the young professor 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow.
A body double? We know this!
That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has been moved when in reality it hasn't. It's basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point during the performance. But would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines?
Ugh. Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed Mr. Asman has no twin siblings. It is my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what, by all accounts, must have been an extremely complex scientific machine.
Whatever do you mean?
Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Drebber.
Indeed it did. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists. Dude, you gotta slow the fuck down. You gotta slow way the fuck down. You can't just shout that at the start.
Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field.
Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found the Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted it ourselves.
If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deception wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past.
What do you therefore assert the explosion at the machine was?
An unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of science.
Counsel, cross-examine. Yes, my lord. I don't know what we're gonna go with yet, so I'm gonna do some pressing.
Hold it!
So you were already acquainted with Asman himself?
Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and construct what they ask for.
So why did Asman approach you in particular, then?
Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering.
Not to mention excellence in fraud.
Hard to gauge, but the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given.
In other words, the kinesis machine was built.
On solid scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Hairbrain certainly has a mind like no other.
Hold it!
It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and knowledge of conjuring magic. However,
The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think.
it's a possibility we have yet to explore.
Unfortunately, though, the machine was blown to Kingdom Come. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there?
It appears the kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device.
And there's nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear.
He must have planned all of this from the outset.
But, in any case, it's abundantly clear the experiment couldn't have been a trick.
Hold it!
Of course, that's it.
No. Don't do this. Why are you doing this? Why are you saying these words?
Objection!
Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. No, I heard you before, but the thread of hope hadn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled out that as a possibility. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact. So it can't have been orchestrated by using somebody who looked identical to Asman then. What are you thinking, Naruhodo? Oh no, nothing. You know, I was thinking that they just moved like the body over, but do you suppose they could have just, because the waxwork must have been used as the body double, that seems pretty obvious. Do you think that the model also could copy the fingerprints, right? If you took a wax print of the dude's fingers, you could probably put some fingerprints there, right? Just the idea of somebody who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. Yeah, we can't open the head, can we? Do we even have the head, actually? We do have the head. I never looked at it. This lock does look very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself if it was put on you. What a terrible way to treat someone, even a convicted criminal. I know, it's starting to make me livid, actually. Mr. Naruhodo, please. I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that's true. But I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger. Oh, right, sorry. Nothing else we can do with it, really. Anyway.
Hold it!
It crashed head first, you say?
According to the many witnesses from there at the time, yes.
Were you not there at the exhibit grounds that day?
Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop.
Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene.
Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labored over for many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes, the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower.
What a surprise.
I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it?
How would you have come by that information?
Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body.
Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver, and he'd broken his vertebrae as a result of the fall.
Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems.
Do we know which injury was the fatal one?
Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at the level where such things can be determined.
What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken,
it's obvious he fell from a considerable height.
I suppose that's hard to deny.
Hold it!
So you understand the science, did you?
Not in the slightest.
Oh, right.
As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I'm given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example.
But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles?
Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles, aren't you?
Damn, dude, you didn't have to do him like that. A good point. Dude, don't agree! Jesus Christ.
The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, and really experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis.
He's certainly very sure of himself. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now the machine has been completely destroyed by the explosion. It's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or the other. But if we're unable to establish that it was a piece of stage trickery, we will have no grounds on which to demonstrate Harebrain's innocence. Asman and this man in the stand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivety and unbending belief in his work, and I won't let them get away with it. Seeing the professor is an old friend of Van Zyke's, what on earth must he be feeling? So what are we really gonna go for here? We need to still prove that it was stage magic without actually, like, pointing at the machine. We need to prove the body double first. Because we clearly can't... If we can't prove that the machine was fake, then we need to prove how the trick was performed outside of the machine. Which means we need to establish who the body double is. We of course know the body double was the waxwork. How do we prove it was the waxwork? Maybe this? If this piece of glass is from the because we found this piece of glass in the waxwork pocket. So that should link the waxwork to the scene. So do I present it here? Like, ah, yes, about that. We found a piece of the glass in a waxwork, wouldn't you know?
Objection.
No? Really? Maybe on the body part? Body double... Yeah, required a twin. But, consider... this piece of glass... Really? I'm having that problem again where I don't know how to tell the game what I'm thinking. So, the point I want to make is that, yeah, alright, he needed a body double. Well, turns out it was a waxwork. How do I know it's a waxwork? Look, I found this giant piece of glass on a waxwork. Meaning it has to have been at the Crystal Tower to have this giant-ass piece of glass there. But I don't know how to tell the game, that's what I'm thinking. This is my problem, like, 90% of the time, it feels like. And sometimes it's like, that might be the right answer, but, like, you need to take some other intermediary step to get there, when you could realistically jump straight to the end. How do I prove this? Do I just present, like, the waxwork head? Maybe? Maybe we present the waxwork head on that? The body double part? Like, I hate showing this. This seems like such a leap to immediately slam the fucking masked head down.
Objection.
Yeah, that doesn't really feel correct. Oh, how do I make this fucking point, dude? Like, am I stupid? Is it me? Is it me that always has... Is it just me that has trouble figuring out how to prove these things? Or, like, how to present these things correctly? Is it just me? It feels like it's needlessly specific sometimes. Like, I guess the series has kind of always been like that, but I've never really felt it this much in the previous entries of, like, how do I tell the game exactly, you know? I feel like that's an experience I've only really had with these, and I've played, like, all the others. Well, no, I kind of had that with Investigations, actually. Though Investigations was weird. Really good game, though. Wait. No, that's not what we're trying to prove. It's the cage going head first, isn't it? Yes, the bird cage is broken at the bottom, not the top. Right? This is the okay, we looked at that. It's this. He didn't crash head first. We examined the bird. Oh my god, suddenly fucking blasted me full on with realization. Like, oh shit, it all clicked into place. We examined the bird cage that crashed into the Crystal Tower. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell 30 feet into the glass of the Crystal Tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top.
What are you saying?
That's the opposite of where they should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So, if the reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the Crystal Tower, yet the damage is at the bottom... The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two bird cages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery. Yeah, why did it change color? Good gracious, explain yourself, witness.
Well...
If we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower. But multiple witness reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage following a spontaneous explosion. At an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall 30 feet into the Crystal Tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable.
Objection!
But the victim's neck was broken.
Objection!
He plummeted 30 feet in a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed.
A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though, to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebrae, actually.
It wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Van Zykes. The witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend. If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here.
Ah, yes, and there's one more point the defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain yet very plainly demonstrates. Certain truth very plainly demonstrates.
What? Seems the cross-examination had better continue. Drebber, you will amend your testimony.
Of course, we will treat the matter scientifically, after all.
Yeah, nearly had him.
The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from.
I mean, it seems a bit of a weird leap to suddenly do that. Though I can show the photograph probably to point this out. Yeah, look, giant fall! Oh, right there under the stage. What do you mean?
Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was live on stage in front of the audience.
Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Asman on the stage.
And the victim's neck was broken as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere.
The balloon that exploded at the altitude of 60 feet, the point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell.
And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage into the sky.
A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds incredibly implausible.
Oh yes. It's all very well thought out.
Certainly all the spectators saw what they did, the birdcage plummeting. Irritatingly, yes. Alright, but we're gonna show the picture on that one. Back that bad boy up. Observe the giant hole. Really? 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 Not this? Not the picture of the giant hole that the birdcage fell down? Oh my god. Okay, well clearly this is the statement we're meant to be saying something about, so if not that, what? Really though? Not this? Not this. This isn't the evidence. This hole is not the evidence. What the fuck? This? Do I present this and point at the tower? I'm so fucking mad. I'm so fucking mad, dude. I'm so fucking mad. Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram, you'll see there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. No. Well, it appears the defense has a possible explanation. Go ahead, counsel. Yes, my lord. Of course. You will indicate the place to which you are referring. Right fucking there. Is it gonna fucking penalize me for not putting it there? I'm gonna put it there.
Take that!
The place I'm referring to is here. But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with. Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage. Go on. It turns out the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the stage gave way, and if we assume there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Oh, finally, the photograph. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene. Good lord, the metal grill in that formed in the floor is undone. Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Mr. Drebber. It was you who built the kinesis machine. Which means that it was you who built the 2 bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference. Because it's the construction of this machine that matters, a machine designed to take Asmon's life. And lay the blame firmly at the professor's door, something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber. Yeah. Wow.
Objection!
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly but surely. What? Your argument fails to hold water. On 2 counts. 2? Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition has attested to that. And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch since. In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages. But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. And the second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. A motive? Do I have to think of everything? I have here a contract provided by the witness. What contract is this? The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asmon. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. 30%, certainly very favorable. But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contacting parties are alive. What the fuck? Why did you put that in the contract? That's a weird thing to put in there, isn't it?
In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Asmon's death. The diametric opposite, in fact.
Ugh. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggested is nil. it seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Van Sykes, you will submit the contract. Well, we gotta read that.
It's true.
The investor, Mr. Odie Osmond, hereby enters into contract with the professor, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high-voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations. Drebber may only uphold the condition that both contracting parties are alive. It just seems so weird for that to be in there. Do you think the signatures matter? If Drebber had no opportunity to switch the cages under the stage, he couldn't have done it, and in any case I have no idea what his motive might have been. There is one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 bird cages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. Ah, so I'm sure you're on the right lines. And I have no doubt there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths. Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder.
Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit.
Objection!
At the beginning of this trial, we believed there was only 1 bird cage. Yet now we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit. Get to the point. The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So, if circumstances means it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved. Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting... Yes, my lord. Drebber had an accomplice.
Objection!
An accomplice now? Well then, I presume you're prepared for what's to come? Now that you're accusing not only this witness of but someone else of the most serious of crimes. If these accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander. Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course? What do I do? At this moment, there's little more than a hunch. I don't know for sure Drebber had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear, as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice, or not? Well, so who's the accomplice? I mean, obviously, right? But, like, who's the accomplice? It has to have been Asmund, doesn't it? We don't exactly have many other people to talk about, do we? Because obviously we can't say Hairbrain. It's none of us. It's, like, pretty clearly not these people. So it has to have been Asmund, right? Yes. The defense would need to name the accomplice. Somehow, 2 bird cages have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. But that inconsistency itself is a clue. Counsel? My lord?
You have received a stark warning. If you nevertheless are determined, then I must ask you to name the alleged accomplice. So, your answer. Who do you claim to have been Drebber's accomplice? Has to be. It's got to have been Asmund. Because, alright, well... So if it was Asmund who was his accomplice, what happened? Clearly something went wrong, right? Has to have been, like, an accident. But then he got, like, accidentally stabbed. I suppose if it's Asmund, we'd need to implicate a third person, wouldn't we? Because there's no reason for Drebber to have killed Asmund, monetarily speaking at least, since he needed Asmund to be alive. So if we say Asmund is the accomplice, then that means there needs to have been a third party, because then we need to implicate somebody that killed Asmund that wasn't Drebber still. So I guess it's not Asmund, because then you'd need to find another culprit still. Because it doesn't seem right now like Drebber was the one that did the stabbing in between. So then who? Like, it can't be any of us, obviously. Like, what? It's one of, like, these nerds? Like, no. It can't be. Esmeralda? Why Esmeralda, though? That's the thing, is it's like Asmund is the only one that seems to make any sense as an accomplice. Fuck it, I'm saying Asmund. I'm going with my gut. Asmund.
Take that!
Who is this person? That's not good. Someone in... Yes. Okay, it's not Asmund. Well, that's me shown. Well, I guess I was right, because you do need to implicate another person if you implicate Asmund. Because you still need to find the person responsible for, like, the killing part. I was gonna go down a line of that it was, like, a deal gone wrong, where you, like, you know, died by accident or some shit, or could have even been that Asmund was gonna stiff Drebber on the money, you know. I think there are a few ways it could have been Asmund, but apparently it wasn't. I like to think my reasoning was sound. Alright, not Asmund. So who? We have these three people as possible suspects. Unless we're gonna fucking say Stive, but that would be pretty fucking wild to leap to, wouldn't it? So what? I'm actually thinking maybe Scythe. Because it needs to have been somebody... So, that's the other thing, right? How did any of these people get there? Right? Because that's the problem, isn't it? Like, the reason it wasn't Drebber is, or that we need to implicate somebody other than Drebber, is that Drebber couldn't get to the scene, and he didn't go to the scene because it's been guarded ever since. So it needs to have been somebody that actually had access to the scene, doesn't it? Is it Scythe? Why, though? That'd be fucking crazy. But it needs to have been somebody who could get in there. Was it Scythe? Okay, so what are the alternatives? Gregson? No. Strongheart? No. Probably not, anyway. I still think Strongheart's a murderer, but I don't think it's for this one. Or that he's gonna be a murderer, anyway. Zykes? No. Gina? No. Scythe is starting to seem like the only one that makes sense. No way. I feel like I'm tricking myself. She's the only one that makes sense, though. But why? Scythe? Dude, I'm gonna say Scythe.
Take that!
The name of the person in question is... What's wrong? It is? What's wrong, my Nipponese friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that. Of course, I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. I'm sure it will be all right, Naruhodo. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. That's a good line. Alright, here goes. You've kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, Council, now. The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe. What the blazes are you talking about? The head of the forensic investigation team and the coroner who conducted the autopsy? We know there were 2 bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It could have only been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. I can't believe it. I said Scythe as like a half joke, and then I was like, but wait, what if it was Scythe?
You've got nerve, lad. Standing up there, dragging the Yard's name through the mud.
I didn't mean to.
I know the woman very well. There's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal?
My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem. One which the prosecution demands you address at once. A grave problem. Oh my word. Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What? Certainly if the birdcage containing the body of the victim was exchanged. That birdcage must have contained a body. And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of a body double. That's not true at all, but my argument is that there were 2 bird cages, then there must have been 1 person inside each. But I don't know if I've got an answer. I do. What can I do to reveal? Present evidence. It's not a person, is it? Very well, the defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Asmund's body double. Good gracious, evidence? I do hope this isn't filibustering, counsel. If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon, which means that any witnesses would have seen them from 60 feet away. So what was it that appeared out of the explosion? Aha. The body double inside the second birdcage was... Do I present the head first? I think I present the head first.
Take that!
We know that the victim, Mr. Asmund, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine. And therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky. Yes, counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version. And that body double inside the birdcage was in fact... It's alright, Naruhodo, you're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with it. Thank you, Sosato. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as it may seem, that thing there.
Objection!
To be fair, this does sound ridiculous. Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at? Stand firm now, Ryunosuke. Time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago, the Professor.
Objection!
You started by indicating the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime. And now you've moved on to indicating waxworks? Yes, that's about the size of it. But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. What? Just days before Harebrain performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tuspel's. Did you say abducted? And 2 days after the incident, he returned it to the museum. Then the timing. Is this true, Mr. Drebber? At first, I couldn't see why Drebber would have stolen the waxwork, because you're a slow bitch. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman.
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he did so in collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait. Yes, if you put it like that, it sounds implausible. My lord.
I need to speak, if you please.
Go ahead.
Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement.
Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, you will state your leanings.
Guilty! Guilty!
It had been a while since we did a good old summation examination. I'm a little mad we didn't present the glass already. So, as indicated by the foreman, we've reached a consensus. I knew that was going to happen. We shall get through this, Naruhodo, as we always do. And uncover some new truths along the way, I'm sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds. The defense will now embark on a summation examination. I don't even need to ask you anymore, I know you're going to. Are you ready?
We are, my lord.
Very well. In that case, I ask you to state for all present the grounds on which you have decided.
I've known that woman for years. She's never been an accomplice to anything.
It's utter nonsense to think that these two would ever be conniving with one another.
Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I have my own problems with the members of the police. I do not trust them much.
I've seen no rigorous proof that the waxwork was ever inside the birdcage.
We'll show him the, glass.
Accusing someone without evidence? He's not proper job, is he? I won't have it.
Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of the waxwork has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim. I like how we're holding the body double up to such rigorous scrutiny. Like, they didn't see it that close up. It doesn't exactly need to be a one-to-one replication. I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it is Asman's body double. To be fair, this is the most ridiculous argument we've presented by far. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Naruhodo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model. Really, a reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced. It's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this. Alright, I want to go straight for the guy with the fucking beakers. Not you. You're not Beaker, man. Oh, he's at... Damn, that's weird. The first one is right at the front. That's damn weird. Alright, Beaker, man. Press. But you claimed the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick.
That I did, but there's no way to pull more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there?
Sorry?
I grant you, given the cage appeared from the midst of an explosion, there'd been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could have at least had the decency to make it look like the victim.
I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency.
The point is, if you're going to make a claim about the waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
I suppose we should expect nothing less. Perhaps this means he could be mine. Yes. I can. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see.
Oh? Well, I must warn you, I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation.
So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass.
Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that was found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass, though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower.
The Crystal Tower? Holy smoke!
Exactly. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass.
From whence this small piece originated. Is that it?
Precisely. So what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you.
Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position.
In that case, you may amend your statement.
The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage.
So who do I pit you against? That one? I'm not sure I actually pit him against anyone else yet. This one would make the most sense, but she's talking about the coroner specifically. I'm gonna press on the others before I actually pit him against anybody else. Because I'm not 100% confident on that. And I'd like to avoid brute forcing the puzzles as much as possible. The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason.
I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that?
Where do I start?
I've been working at the yard for 40-odd years.
That's even more than I thought.
We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime. We had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And win we did. Forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now, and she spearheaded the revolution.
It's Dr. Scythe, you mean?
That's right, about 10 years ago now. It was when I was still a youngish bobby on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you won't hear me complain. It's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you.
Could you tell me without holding the gun?
We are all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of vim we were, full of vim.
That's coming across loud and clear. Alright, great job. To be fair, he's, you know, it's pretty wild. I'm still reeling from the fact that this is what we went with. But we're only just starting to understand the case. What are you reading?
The man behind these murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you.
That's not relevant to the case.
You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies. And it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible.
Oh.
That's right, oh. That woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she is somehow involved in this murdy business is a load of old tosh.
I thought it was up for me to press the jurors. Surely a waxwork has nothing to do with the coroner. Why would you assume that?
Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he?
True, as it stands, we don't know any of any connection.
Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic?
A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know.
Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to.
One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and the coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor.
Yo, she's writing fan fiction. This woman may be more astute than I'm giving her credit for. If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Scythe would be enough. We don't have anything like that yet, do we? Wait, what's this again? Right, Joe's contract. Because this wasn't Scythe, no. No. This guy might have something, though. What sort of problems?
Let's just say that we've run into each other on numerous occasions when I've been performing on the street.
Right, I see.
Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult.
Don't fucking do that. What is wrong with you? Don't fucking do that.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say in response, Mr. Ottermole?
Who are you calling a mass murderer?
Sorry, my mistake. I got confused. I heard you look like him.
I don't look anything like that man. You want to be locked up, Sonny?
Thanks, Holmes. Perhaps we could move on. I was wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what Juror 3 said. Stop doing that. And clearly you do.
Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this.
What was it like, sir?
We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then.
Respected you?
No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Courtney Stevens put her name to it. She was the best of the best.
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens?
Ah, sorry. Got a bit carried away there.
Stevens is Dr. Scythe's maiden name. We did it! Her maiden name. So before she was married.
course, yes, silly me. It's Scythe now, isn't it?
Stevens. I've seen that name somewhere recently.
Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing. Not like now.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name?
Well, yes, I don't see why not.
Yes. So we press him, or pit him, against her. Because Stevens was on the autopsy report and the boy was involved in the incident. Yes. Yes, yes. Those two statements contradict. Good gracious, to whose statements? So, juror number 2.
Oh gosh, me? What can I do for you?
I presume you heard what juror 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe. Which, in turn... Oh, and she'd know what the dude looks like under the mask. Turn revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before.
Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But, oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean.
Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens. And through that name, the coroner is very directly linked to the waxwork. The defense has evidence to prove it.
My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling.
Counsel, the court cannot overlook your last remark. Of course, my lord, I would like the court to look at this. Not that one. That one, yes.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, known as the Professor. The Professors? You mean the capital offender? So... That's right. There's the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens.
Oh my, Courtney Stevens.
Strike a light.
It appears the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tusspel's. A waxwork that doesn't, in fact, resemble the victim, Mr. Asman, at all.
And so you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events?
Absolutely. I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of a link that we've yet to uncover. Between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
Easy.
Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's a cloud of suspicion hanging over the odds best coroner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end.
All right. Alright, press U, you're the only one left. I've got to ask, why have you brought that cord into the court?
Good old Cobb, he's been growing back on the farm. Picked him off on the way into town. He's a proper nibbler, he is.
Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait till after?
Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need kernels at times like these. Whenever I'm something big to decide, the kernels always point me in the right direction, see?
You're talking about your cob of corn?
Nibble, nobble, guilty bobble. Nibble, not guilty, out. Nibble, nobble,
Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, guilty, out. Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, not, guilty, out. Perhaps it's akin to fortune-telling with flower petals. Professor Harebrain's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you not at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth? Oh, I don't know about that. My tummy's awfully full already. Amazing. Ha. Ha ha ha. Alright, good talk to you. Yeah. Alright. So, do I press on him again now? We've only, now that, you know, the other bit just changed. No. No, okay. Well, we didn't let you finish. Your statement is still this. Do you have anything else to say after that bit? Sometimes they even cook up a story to extort monies from the poor. Well, that's definitely not right. Yes, this is what I say. If you trust the police, you will have trouble. But here you are, claiming this waxwork model was stolen to star in an illusionary spectacular. The idea is wild, I think. I will take my chances and believe the authorities. This is how the public at large views Scotland Yard, is it? Our own police force in Tokyo is not even 20 years old yet, is it? Perhaps we should try to view what's happened in London as a measure of what may happen at home. Yes, like a Scotland Yard stag. I wonder how a policeman would feel listening to the way this juror speaks about the force. I'm sure he'd have a word or two to say in response. He did, in fact. Alright. So who do we put this guy against? Not really that one. This one? Gotta be, right? No evidence? Behold, my evidence. Objection. Those statements contradict. Good gracious, to whose statements? If you could put down your corn for a moment, Juror 5. Oh, you mean me? You've pointed out it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence. But the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the birdcage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you. Oh, is that right? Wouldn't it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument? I don't understand much beside Colonel Cobb, to be honest. Of course you don't.
If I could interject here.
Please do, sir.
Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me, as a man of science, not to pursue the matter further. Easy.
Ah, well, me too then. Sorry? If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobb or anyone who's got stuff in between the ears.
Easy. Success, if you can call it that.
We now, unfortunately, we have to prove the next part as well. Thank you, counsel. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors called guilty. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus, and the trial must continue.
We did it.
Well done, Naruhodo. Another wonderful victory. Zykes mauling in the corner. A waxwork of the despicable professor, used as a body double. I must say it's extremely hard to believe. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Drebber and Miss Dr. Sive. And I'm convinced that there's special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness.
The owner?
Madame Tuspel.
I really thought that Van Zykes would object to this whole line. Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Tuspel to appear.
Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box.
He knows more than he's letting on, just like everybody else we know. The court shall adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness.
Madame Tuspel's, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord.
We did it, team.
We've started to save the city. Easy peasy.
Still can't believe we fucking...
I thought it'd be the last case before we started accusing, like, actual high, like, bigwigs.